The secret that refused to stay. Buried Rachel Coleman had spent 16 years hiding one secret, not from God, but from her husband. Every Sunday, they sat together in the third row of their little church, holding hands, raising two beautiful children. Everyone believed they were the perfect Christian family. David believed he knew everything about the woman he had married. He was wrong. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, Rachel's phone rang. The caller ID showed a name she hadn't seen in 16 years. Her hands began to shake. She answered, "Rachel, it's about Caleb." The coffee mug slipped from her hands and shattered across the kitchen floor. She couldn't breathe, because Caleb was the son her husband never knew existed. And in that single moment, Rachel realized the truth she'd buried for 16 years was finally coming home 16 years earlier.
Place where much happened. People knew one another by name. Children rode their bicycles until sunset without their parents worrying. Neighbors waved from their porches. And every Sunday morning, the parking lot of Grace Community Church filled long before the service began. Among the familiar faces, one family always seemed to stand out: David and Rachel Coleman. If someone had asked the congregation what a Christian marriage should look like, many would have pointed toward them without hesitation. David served as one of the church's deacons, quiet, dependable, the kind of man who arrived early to unlock the doors before anyone else. Rachel led the women's Bible study every Wednesday evening. She had a gentle smile that made strangers feel welcome within minutes. Together they seemed steady, not flashy, not perfect, just faithful. The kind of couple younger newlyweds quietly admired. Every Sunday, they sat in the third row, always the third row. Emma, 6 years old, loved to sing louder than everyone else, even if she couldn't quite stay on key. Little Noah, only 4, spent most of the sermon drawing animals inside the children's bulletin, while trying very hard to whisper questions that somehow never sounded like whispers. Rachel loved those moments. She often caught herself looking down the row at her family while the pastor preached. David listening carefully. Emma swinging her feet beneath the pew. Noah resting his head against David's shoulder. Sometimes she would close her eyes for just a second and silently thank God. Not because life was perfect, but because life was peaceful. A peace she had once believed she would never have. That afternoon, after church, the Colemans followed their usual routine. Lunch at home. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes. Emma insisted on helping set the table, though every plate ended up slightly crooked. Noah proudly carried napkins one at a time, convinced he was performing a very important job. David laughed. "I think we've got the best waitstaff in town." Emma giggled. "We're not waiters, Daddy." "No?" David asked, with exaggerated surprise. "What are you then?" "We're your helpers." Rachel smiled as she watched them. These ordinary moments, these simple conversations, were the ones she treasured most, because ordinary had once seemed impossible. Later that evening, after the children were asleep, David stepped onto the back porch carrying 2 mugs of hot tea. Rachel was already sitting in the porch swing, wrapped in a blanket as the Kentucky bluegrass breeze rustled through the trees. He handed her one of the mugs. "You look tired today." "I guess I am." "You've been working too hard?" She smiled. "So have you." David shrugged. "Comes with the mortgage." They both laughed. For a while, neither of them spoke. They simply listened to the crickets. It was one of the things Rachel loved most about her husband. He never felt the need to fill every silence. Sometimes love sounded like conversation. Sometimes it sounded like peace. David finally broke the silence. "You know something?" Rachel looked at him. "What?" "I was talking to Mark after church." "Our newlyweds class." David nodded. "They asked what the secret is." Rachel laughed. "The secret? To staying married." She raised an eyebrow. "And what great wisdom did you give them?" David smiled. "I told them marriage gets easier when there aren't any secrets." Rachel's fingers tightened around the warm mug. So many couples spend years hiding little things. He looked toward the backyard. But trust, he paused. Trust grows when two people decide there's nothing worth hiding. Rachel stared into her tea. The steam blurred her vision for a moment. She forced herself to smile. I think you're right. David reached over and squeezed her hand. I've always loved that about us. Rachel felt something twist deep inside her chest, because David believed every word he was saying, and she wished, more than anything, that it were completely true. The following Tuesday began like every other weekday. Emma left for school wearing mismatched socks because she insisted they were luckier. Noah cried because he couldn't find his favorite toy dinosaur. David rushed out the door with a quick kiss. I'll be home by 6. I love you. I love you too. Rachel watched him drive away. She smiled, then closed the front door. The house became quiet. She started a load of laundry, folded clean towels, turned on soft worship music while preparing homemade bread for dinner. The scent filled the kitchen. Outside, sunlight poured through the windows. Everything felt normal, almost painfully normal. Rachel had no way of knowing that in less than an hour, the life she had spent 16 years protecting would begin to unravel. The girl who disappeared 16 years earlier. Rachel Coleman wasn't the confident woman everyone at Grace Community Church knew. She was only 17, a senior in high school, quiet, bright. The kind of girl teachers described as full of potential. She dreamed of becoming an elementary school teacher. She loved reading on the front porch. She played piano every Sunday at her family's church. To anyone looking from the outside, her future seemed perfectly planned until one tiny plastic test changed everything. Rachel stared at the bathroom sink. The 2 pink lines refused to disappear. She blinked, looked again, then again. Maybe she'd read it wrong. Maybe the test was defective. Maybe, but deep down, she already knew. She slowly slid to the bathroom floor. Her knees pulled against her chest. Her hands covered her trembling mouth. I'm pregnant. The words barely escaped in a whisper. The father was Tyler, 19 years old, charming, funny, the boy who had promised her forever beneath the old oak tree outside town. When Rachel finally found the courage to tell him, he stared at her for several long seconds. Neither of them spoke. Finally, he looked away. I can't do this. Rachel felt her heart sink. What do you mean? I mean, he rubbed the back of his neck. I'm not ready to be somebody's father. You said you loved me? I do. But love doesn't change this. She searched his face, looking for the young man she thought she knew. Instead, she found fear, the same fear she felt herself. Only his fear chose to run. I'm sorry. Those were the last words he ever spoke to her. Rachel never saw him again. Going home felt even harder. Her parents loved God, loved the church, loved their daughter, but they also believed reputation mattered. Mistakes weren't discussed. They were buried, covered, pretended away. Rachel knew exactly how the conversation would go. Her father's disappointment, her mother's tears, the whispers at church, the judgment. She wasn't afraid of punishment. She was afraid of becoming the girl everyone talked about. There was only one person she believed might understand: her Aunt Louise. Louise lived nearly 300 miles away in a quiet Kentucky town. She had never married, never had children of her own. But she had always loved Rachel as if she were her daughter. When Rachel called, she couldn't even finish the first sentence before breaking into tears. Louise listened quietly, never interrupting, never judging. Finally, she said, "Come here." Rachel sniffled. "What?" "Pack a bag. You don't have to go through this alone." 3 days later, Rachel stepped off a Greyhound bus carrying one small suitcase. Louise was waiting. The moment Rachel saw her, she burst into tears. Louise wrapped both arms around her. "It's okay." "No," Rachel sobbed. "It's really not." Louise gently brushed the hair away from Rachel's face. "We'll figure it out. One step at a time." For the first time since seeing those 2 pink lines, Rachel believed maybe, just maybe, she wasn't completely alone. Months passed. Louise went to every doctor's appointment, held Rachel's hand through every ultrasound, sat awake during nights when fear refused to let either of them sleep. One evening, Rachel sat on the porch rubbing her growing stomach. "I've ruined my life." Louise looked at her. "No." Rachel laughed bitterly. "Does it look like I haven't?" Louise reached over, placed her hand gently on Rachel's shoulder. "You made a mistake." She paused. "That little boy." She smiled toward Rachel's stomach. "He's never been the mistake." Rachel looked down. Tears quietly rolled onto her hands. It was the first time someone had separated her sin from her son. And somehow, that changed everything. Caleb entered the world on a rainy October morning. Rachel cried the moment the nurse placed him in her arms. He had thick, dark hair, tiny fingers, bright blue eyes that searched the room as if he already wanted to understand it. "Hello," she whispered through tears. "I'm your mommy." He wrapped his tiny hand around her finger. Rachel immediately fell in love. Completely, hopelessly. There wasn't a single part of her that wanted to let him go. But reality arrived far too quickly. She couldn't stay forever. Eventually, she would have to return home, back to school, back to the life everyone believed she still had. Rachel spent 3 precious months with Caleb. She memorized every little sound he made, every sleepy smile, every tiny laugh, every late night feeding, every morning cuddle. She wanted to remember everything because deep inside, she feared those memories might have to last a lifetime. One evening, after Caleb had fallen asleep, Rachel found Louise quietly rocking him in the nursery. "I can't leave him." Louise looked up. "I know. I don't think I can breathe without him." Louise's eyes filled with tears. "You won't stop being his mother." Rachel shook her head. "It feels like I will." Louise stood, placed Caleb gently into Rachel's arms. "No, you'll always be his mother, even if life doesn't look the way either of us hoped." Rachel looked down at her sleeping baby. She kissed his forehead. "I love you," her voice cracked. "So much." Then she whispered something only God could hear. "I'm sorry." The day Rachel boarded the bus back home, she didn't look out the window. She couldn't, because Caleb was in Louise's arms, wrapped in a soft blue blanket, sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that his mother was leaving with half her heart still standing on the sidewalk. Rachel cried almost the entire trip home, not because she didn't love her son, but because she believed. Leaving him with the one person she trusted was the only chance either of them had at a better future. It was a decision she would question every single day for the next 16 years. 16 years later, the basketball bounced against the cracked driveway. Thump, thump, thump. A tall teenage boy dribbled effortlessly before sinking another shot into the old rusted hoop beside Louise's house. "Nice shot," Louise called from the porch. Caleb smiled. "Still can't beat me." Louise laughed. "I've accepted my defeat." He walked toward the porch, wiping sweat from his forehead. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Caleb asked quietly, "Aunt Louise?" She looked up. "Yeah?" He hesitated. "Do you think my mom ever thinks about me?" Louise's smile slowly disappeared. She looked toward the fading Kentucky sunset and silently prayed, because she knew the time for secrets was almost over. The phone call that changed everything. The sun had barely begun to set over Kentucky when Caleb finally spoke again. Louise remained seated in her old wooden rocking chair, watching the breeze move gently through the maple trees in the front yard. She had been dreading this conversation for years, maybe even before Caleb was old enough to ask the question. He sat on the porch steps, spinning a basketball slowly between his hands. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable." Louise forced a smile. "You didn't. You always get quiet whenever I ask about her." He looked down. "I've noticed." Louise sighed. "You notice more than people think." Caleb smiled faintly. "I guess." After a long silence, he looked back at her. "Did she not want me?" The words hit Louise harder than she expected. She immediately shook her head. "No." "So, she died?" "No." "Then why wasn't she here?" Louise closed her eyes for just a moment. She had promised Rachel 16 years ago that she would protect the secret, but promises sometimes carried an expiration date. And hers had arrived. That night, Louise couldn't sleep. The pain in her abdomen had become sharper over the past few weeks. At first she blamed age, then indigestion. Eventually, her doctor ordered more tests. The results had come 2 days earlier. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. There would be treatment, there would be hope, but there would also be honesty. She knew she could no longer pretend there would always be more time. Not for herself, and certainly not for Rachel. She slowly walked into the spare bedroom where an old cedar chest sat beneath the window. Inside, 16 years of memories, neatly tied with faded blue ribbons, birthday cards, photographs, school reports Rachel had asked to see, Christmas gifts mailed anonymously, letters, dozens of letters, everyone written by Rachel, none of them ever sent. Louise picked up the oldest one. The paper had yellowed with age. She unfolded it carefully. "Dear Caleb, today you turn 3 months old. Tomorrow I have to leave. If love alone could keep me here, I never would. I don't know if you'll ever read these letters, but I need to write them anyway, because even if the whole world believes I left you, God knows I never stopped being your mother." Louise wiped away a tear before folding it again. Rachel had written another letter every birthday, every Christmas, every graduation, every milestone she missed. She had poured 16 years of motherhood into envelopes that no one had ever opened, not because she didn't care, but because she believed her silence protected everyone. Louise gently placed the letters back inside the chest, then reached for her phone. Nearly 300 miles away, Rachel was standing in her kitchen, kneading bread dough. Soft worship music played quietly from a speaker beside the window. Outside, the neighborhood was peaceful. Inside, everything still felt normal. Her phone rang. She glanced at the screen. Her heart stopped. Even after all these years, she recognized the number immediately. Her hands trembled before she answered. "Hello?" For several seconds, only breathing. Then, "Rachel." Louise's voice sounded weaker than she remembered. "Aunt Louise." "Yes. Is everything okay?" Another pause. "No." Rachel's stomach tightened. "What happened?" Louise didn't soften the truth. "The doctors found cancer." Rachel grabbed the edge of the counter. "What? It's my pancreas. The prognosis isn't good." Rachel covered her mouth. Tears immediately blurred her vision. "I'm so sorry." "I know," Louise answered quietly. "But that's not why I'm calling." Rachel already knew. Somehow, she already knew. "It's about Caleb." The words emptied the room of air. Rachel closed her eyes. She could picture him instantly, not as the teenager he had become, but as the tiny baby she had kissed goodbye 16 years earlier. "He's asking questions," Louise continued. "The kind of questions I can't answer anymore." Rachel leaned against the counter. "What kind of questions?" "He wants to know who his mother is." Rachel couldn't speak. "He asked me today if she ever loved him." The sentence shattered something inside her. A sob escaped before she could stop it. Oh God, he thinks she abandoned him. Rachel slid slowly down the kitchen cabinets until she was sitting on the floor. She hugged her knees against her chest. No, I never wanted him to think that. I know, Louise whispered. I've always known. Rachel cried openly now. I don't even know what I'd say if I saw him. You'd tell him the truth. I don't know if I can. You have to. Louise's voice remained calm. Rachel, I won't always be here. The silence that followed felt unbearable. I've protected your secret for 16 years. But if something happens to me, there will be no one left to carry it. Rachel buried her face in her hands. I'm scared. I know. I'm terrified. I know. What if David leaves me? Louise answered almost immediately. And what if he doesn't? Rachel said nothing. What if, Louise continued, your husband deserves the chance to love the real Rachel? The question lingered. Rachel had never thought about it that way. She had spent 16 years fearing rejection, never once considering that she had also denied David the chance to choose grace. Before ending the call, Louise said one last thing. Rachel, there's something else. Rachel wiped her eyes. What? Caleb smiled today, the same crooked smile his mother had when she was 17. Rachel laughed through her tears. He still has it? He does. And every time I see it. Louise paused. I see you. The call ended. Rachel remained on the kitchen floor, completely still. The bread dough sat unfinished on the counter. The worship music continued playing. But she heard none of it. Only one thought echoed inside her mind. It's time. At 6 o'clock, David came home. Emma ran to hug him. Noah proudly showed off the paper airplane he'd made that afternoon. Rachel watched from the kitchen doorway. Her family. Her safe place. The people she had spent 16 years trying to protect. David smiled as he wrapped an arm around her waist. Everything okay? Rachel looked into his eyes. Kind, honest, trusting. She opened her mouth. The words almost came, almost. Instead, she forced a smile. I'm just tired. David kissed her forehead. Then let's eat. Rachel nodded, but inside, she knew this would be the last dinner they would ever share, before the truth changed everything. When the truth finally spoke, Rachel barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Caleb's face. Not the face of the 16-year-old she'd never met, but the tiny baby she'd kissed goodbye at the bus station. She had replayed that moment thousands of times over the years. His tiny fingers wrapped around hers, the soft blanket, the tears she had tried so desperately to hide for 16 years. She had convinced herself that silence was love. Now, silence felt like betrayal. The next morning passed in a blur. She packed Noah's lunch, braided Emma's hair before school, smiled at neighbors, answered emails from the women's Bible study. She did everything she normally did, everything except breathe normally. By late afternoon, she had made her decision. No more waiting. If she delayed another day, she knew she never would. That evening, after dinner, David helped Emma finish a school project while Noah built a tower of wooden blocks on the living room rug. Rachel watched them from the kitchen doorway. She realized she had memorized this picture without ever meaning to. David laughing, Emma concentrating with her tongue slightly sticking out, Noah cheering every time another block stayed standing. She wondered, would this be the last ordinary evening they ever shared? Later, after the children had fallen asleep, Rachel stood outside Emma's bedroom for several seconds. She gently kissed her daughter's forehead, then Noah's, as she quietly closed his bedroom door. A tear rolled down her cheek. She whispered a prayer. Lord, whatever happens tonight, please don't let them lose their father or their mother. David was sitting in the living room reading when Rachel walked in. He immediately noticed something was wrong. He placed the book on the coffee table. Rachel. She remained standing. Her hands trembled so badly she clasped them together. Can we talk? His expression changed. Of course, she didn't sit beside him. Instead, she chose the armchair across from the couch. The distance between them suddenly felt much larger than a few feet. David frowned. You're scaring me. Rachel took one slow breath, then another. Finally, she looked into his eyes. I need you to let me finish before you say anything. His heartbeat quickened. Okay, she nodded. I've wanted to tell you this for years. Years. That single word caught his attention. Years? Rachel's voice began to shake. When I was 17, I got pregnant. David blinked once, then remained perfectly still. I had a baby boy. Silence. Rachel kept speaking before fear could stop her. His name is Caleb. My Aunt Louise raised him in Kentucky. I left him with her after he was born. I've visited him whenever I could. I've sent money. I've written letters. I've prayed for him every single day. I never stopped loving him. She covered her face for a moment. I never found the courage to tell you. David didn't move. Not immediately. His face had gone completely pale. He stared at Rachel, as if trying to decide whether he had heard her correctly. Finally, he spoke, barely above a whisper. How old is he? 16. The answer landed like a punch. David slowly leaned back against the couch. 16. He repeated the number almost to himself. Then he looked up. We've been married. For 16 years. Rachel nodded through tears. Yes. He swallowed hard. So, his voice cracked. You knew. Every day we were married. You knew. Rachel couldn't answer. Because there was no answer that could make those words hurt less. David stood, walked toward the fireplace, then turned back. I don't understand, Rachel quietly replied. I was afraid. Afraid of what? You leaving. He laughed once. Not because anything was funny, because he couldn't believe what he was hearing. So instead, you let me build my whole life around a lie? Rachel immediately shook her head. Our marriage wasn't a lie. I loved you. I still love you. The longer I waited, the harder it became. David looked at her with tears beginning to form. You let me stand before God. You let me promise my life to you. And you never told me I already had a son. Rachel closed her eyes. The words hurt because they were true. I know. No. David interrupted. I don't think you do. His voice rose for the first time. I've spent 16 years believing I knew everything about my wife. I defended you. I trusted you. I told people honesty was the foundation of our marriage. He shook his head slowly. What else don't I know? The question hung in the room. Rachel felt like someone had reached into her chest. Nothing. David looked away. I don't know if I believe that anymore. Neither of them spoke. The silence felt endless. Then Rachel whispered, I never abandoned him. David looked back. I visited him every year. I paid for his school. I called when I could. I wrote letters. She broke down. I thought staying away would protect everyone. David stared at her. Protect who? You. Our future. Our children. Our church. My parents. My family. My reputation. Every answer sounded smaller than the one before. David slowly rubbed both hands across his face. You know what hurts the most? Rachel waited. I could have understood 17-year-old Rachel. His voice became quieter. I really think I could have. He looked directly into her eyes. But I don't understand 33-year-old Rachel, or 34, or 38. You had 16 years to trust me. Rachel couldn't stop crying. I know. I was a coward. David closed his eyes. No. You were terrified. He sighed deeply. And somewhere along the way, you started trusting your fear more than you trusted me. Those words hurt Rachel more than anything else he'd said, because they were true. David picked up his car keys. Rachel stood. Where are you going? I don't know. David, I can't stay here tonight. Her heart sank. Please. He stopped at the front door. Without turning around, he quietly asked, Does Caleb know about me? Rachel wiped her tears. No, he doesn't know any of you. David lowered his head. So there really is another family out there. And I've been living beside it for 16 years. Without ever knowing, Rachel whispered, I'm so sorry. David finally turned. There was no anger in his eyes anymore. Only heartbreak. I believe you are, he paused. But right now, I don't know who I am anymore. He opened the door, stepped outside, and disappeared into the darkness. Rachel remained standing in the silent house. The sound of David's truck faded into the distance. Only then did her knees finally give out. She sank onto the living room floor, surrounded by the life they had built together. Wedding photos, children's drawings, family memories. Everything looked exactly the same, yet nothing would ever be the same again. She folded her hands. Tears soaked the carpet beneath her. For several minutes, she couldn't even find words to pray. Finally, only one sentence came. Lord, I hid this from my husband, but I never hid it from you. Please, teach me how to live in the truth, even if it costs me everything. Grace is harder than judgment. David spent the next few days at his older brother Michael's house. He barely slept, barely ate. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Rachel sitting across from him, tears streaming down her face. I had a son. The words echoed over and over. 16 years, 16 birthdays, 16 Christmas mornings, 16 years of memories he had never known existed. He wasn't only grieving the secret, he was grieving the life he never had the chance to live. Michael never pushed him to talk. The two brothers had always understood each other without many words. On the second evening, they sat on the back porch watching the sun disappear behind the trees. Michael finally spoke. You gonna tell me what happened? David let out a slow breath. My wife has a 16-year-old son. Michael turned to look at him. What? She had him before we met. She never told me. Michael remained silent. David laughed bitterly. I've spent 16 years believing I knew my own wife. I don't even know what was real anymore. Michael looked toward the horizon. You think she stopped loving you? David frowned. No. You think she cheated on you? No. You think she wanted to hurt you? David rubbed his face. No. Michael nodded. Then maybe the question isn't whether she loved you. It's why she believed she couldn't trust you. David didn't answer, because he had been asking himself that same question all day. Back at the Coleman house, Rachel moved through the days like a ghost. She smiled for Emma. She read bedtime stories to Noah. She packed lunches, folded laundry, answered questions. But every room reminded her of David, his Bible on the nightstand, his favorite coffee mug beside the sink, his jacket still hanging by the front door. She never moved it. Part of her hoped he might walk back in at any moment. On Friday afternoon, Rachel heard someone knocking. She opened the door. Pastor Whitfield stood there. He smiled gently. I was in the neighborhood. She knew he was lying, but she appreciated it anyway. "May I come in?" Rachel nodded. They sat at the kitchen table, the same place where she and David had shared hundreds of ordinary conversations. Today, nothing felt ordinary. "I imagine David told you." "He told me enough." Rachel lowered her eyes. "I've destroyed my marriage." The pastor was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he asked, "Rachel, why did you hide Caleb?" She immediately answered, "Fear." Fear of what? Losing everything. "And what did your fear eventually cost you?" Rachel couldn't stop the tears. "Everything." Pastor Whitfield nodded. "Fear makes terrible promises. It tells us silence will protect us. But silence has a way of becoming its own prison." Rachel whispered, "I know." He smiled sadly. "I think you do." Before leaving, the pastor noticed a small cedar box sitting on a bookshelf. "What's that?" Rachel hesitated, then quietly brought it to the table. Inside were 16 years of letters. Perfectly stacked, blue ribbon wrapped around them, Pastor Whitfield gently picked up the first envelope. "You never mailed these?" Rachel shook her head. "I wanted to. Every birthday, every Christmas, every Mother's Day, I wrote to him. I never knew if opening that door would destroy everyone's life." The pastor looked at the box for several seconds, then closed the lid. "I think someone needs to read these." The following morning, David returned home, not to stay, only to gather a few more clothes. The house was quiet. Rachel had taken the children grocery shopping. He walked through the bedrooms slowly. Every object carried a memory: their wedding photograph, family vacations, Emma's first drawing, Noah's baby footprints framed on the wall. Nothing about this house looked fake. Nothing. So why did he still feel like a stranger inside it? He opened the closet, searching for a travel bag. That's when he noticed it. A small cedar box tucked behind a stack of folded blankets. He frowned. He had never seen it before. Curious, he pulled it down. The ribbon around it had faded with age. Inside, letters, dozens of them, each addressed the same way, to Caleb. David sat on the edge of the bed. Slowly, he unfolded the first one. "Dear Caleb, today you turn 1 year old. I wonder if you've started walking yet. I wish I could be there to cheer for your first steps. Please never believe your mother forgot you. I remember every day without you." David swallowed hard. He opened another. "Dear Caleb, you're 5 today. I bought a birthday cake. After everyone went to bed, I lit one candle and thanked God for giving me a little boy. Maybe one day we'll celebrate together." Another. "Dear Caleb, you're 10 now. Emma started school this week. Watching her walk into her classroom made me wonder if you were nervous on your first day too. I wish I had been there." David felt something tightening in his chest. He kept reading. Another and another. Every letter carried the same ache, the same love, the same regret. Never excuses, never blame. Only a mother speaking to a son she believed she might never hold again. Finally, he reached the last letter, written only a few months earlier. "Dear Caleb, you're 16 today. Every year I ask God for one miracle. Not that you'll forgive me. I don't know if I deserve that. Only that one day you'll know the truth. Because if you believe I stopped loving you, then I failed twice. Once as a frightened girl, and once as your mother. I hope someday you'll know you were never the secret. My fear was..." David slowly lowered the letter, his vision blurred for the first time since Rachel's confession. He cried. Not because the pain had disappeared. It hadn't. Not even close. But because he finally understood something. Rachel hadn't spent 16 years hiding a son. She had spent 16 years punishing herself. That Sunday, for the first time in his life, David didn't know whether he belonged in church. Still, his feet carried him there. The sanctuary was already filling with people. He slipped quietly into the back row, far away from the third row, far away from the place where he and Rachel had always sat together. Pastor Whitfield saw him after the service. Neither man spoke for several moments. Finally, the pastor asked, "Did you read the letters?" David looked surprised. "You knew?" The pastor smiled gently. "I hoped you would." David stared down at his hands. "I thought she had hidden Caleb because she wanted to erase him." He paused. But every letter proved she never stopped being his mother. Pastor Whitfield nodded. Fear can make good people make terrible decisions. David looked up. "So what do I do now?" The pastor didn't answer immediately. Instead, he opened the Bible he was carrying. His finger stopped at Romans 5:8. He turned it toward David. "But God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." David read the verse silently. The pastor closed the Bible. Grace has never meant pretending sin doesn't exist. It means choosing love after facing the truth. David remained silent. Then he asked the question that had been haunting him for days. "How do I forgive 16 years?" Pastor Whitfield smiled softly. "You don't forgive 16 years. You forgive one decision, then another, and another, just like God has done with you." David stood there for a long time, looking toward the empty third row. The place suddenly felt incomplete. Not because Rachel had lied, but because there was still one seat that had never been filled. One young man who had spent 16 years believing he didn't have a family waiting for him, and in that moment, David made a decision, not because the pain was gone, but because love had finally become greater than fear. Welcome home. The drive to Kentucky felt longer than it actually was. Neither David nor Rachel spoke much. The highway stretched endlessly ahead, disappearing beneath gray autumn skies. Rachel kept both hands tightly clasped in her lap. Every few minutes she glanced at David. He kept his eyes on the road, focused, quiet, not distant, just thoughtful. It had been 3 days since their conversation outside the church. 3 days since David had read the letters. 3 days since he had quietly asked one simple question: "Will you take me to meet him?" Rachel hadn't stopped crying since, not because everything had been forgiven, but because hope had returned, small, fragile, but real. As they crossed into Kentucky, Rachel's heartbeat became almost unbearable. She recognized every exit, every country road, every familiar landmark. Nothing had changed, except everything had. David finally broke the silence. "What does he like?" Rachel blinked. "What?" "Caleb." She smiled through nervous tears. I don't know everything." The answer hurt both of them. "But Aunt Louise says he loves basketball. He fixes old motorcycles with one of the neighbors. He wants to study engineering." David smiled faintly. "He sounds like a good kid." Rachel looked out the window. He always was. Louise was already waiting on the front porch when their car pulled into the driveway. She looked thinner than Rachel remembered. The chemotherapy had taken much of her strength, but her smile was exactly the same. Rachel climbed out of the car. Before either woman spoke, they embraced. Neither tried to hold back the tears. "I'm sorry," Rachel whispered. Louise gently shook her head. "No, I'm grateful. You came." Rachel nodded. "I almost didn't." "I know," Louise smiled softly. "But you did." David stepped forward. Louise hugged him too. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I asked you to carry a burden that was never yours." David shook his head. You protected 2 people you loved. She looked into his eyes. I protected them. She paused. But I also helped keep them apart. David gently squeezed her hand. We're here now, Louise smiled. Yes, you are. The front door opened. A tall teenage boy stepped onto the porch. Dark brown hair, blue eyes, a basketball tucked beneath one arm. He stopped immediately, looking first at Rachel, then at David. No one moved. The silence stretched painfully. Rachel felt every word she had rehearsed disappear. For 16 years, she had imagined this moment. None of those imagined conversations prepared her for the reality. Caleb spoke first. You're... His voice caught. My mom. Rachel nodded, unable to speak. I'm Rachel. He gave a tiny smile. I know. She frowned. Louise looked down. I showed him your picture. Rachel covered her mouth. Caleb took one slow step forward. I've looked at that picture for years. Another silence. Then he quietly asked, Why? It wasn't angry. It wasn't accusing. It was simply honest. Why? Rachel's knees nearly gave out. She looked directly into his eyes. Because I was 17. I was terrified. I believed everyone would hate me. I believed I would ruin your life. She swallowed hard. So I made the worst decision I've ever made. Tears streamed freely now. I thought leaving you with the person I trusted most would give you a better life. She shook her head. I was wrong. Caleb listened without interrupting. Rachel continued. I never stopped loving you. I visited. I called. I sent money. I wrote you letters. She reached into her bag, pulled out the cedar box. I wrote one almost every birthday. Caleb stared at it. His hands trembled as he accepted the box. You wrote these. For me? Rachel nodded. Every single one. I never had the courage to send them. Caleb carefully untied the faded blue ribbon. He opened the very first letter. Read only a few lines. Then another. Then another. His eyes filled with tears. He looked back at Rachel. You really thought about me. Every year. Rachel smiled through tears. There wasn't a single day when I didn't. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Caleb did something no one expected. He stepped forward, wrapped both arms around Rachel, and whispered, I've wanted this hug my whole life. Rachel broke completely. She held him as tightly as she could. 16 years of guilt, 16 years of longing, 16 years of silent prayers, all collapsed into one embrace. David quietly stepped back, giving them space. Louise noticed him watching. You okay? David smiled. I think. He paused. I'm watching 2 broken hearts heal. Louise looked at him carefully. You've got a good heart. David shook his head. No, I've got a good God. A little while later, the 4 of them sat together on the porch. The conversation came slowly at first. Awkward, careful, like strangers learning a language they had always wanted to speak. Caleb laughed as David admitted he had once accidentally glued 2 pieces of furniture together while trying to repair them. Rachel couldn't remember the last time she'd heard David tell that story. She realized something. He wasn't pretending. He was trying to make a 16-year-old boy feel welcome, trying to bridge 16 years with kindness, trying to become something he had never expected to be. As the afternoon faded into evening, David looked toward Caleb. I know this is probably strange. Caleb chuckled. That's one way to describe it. Everyone laughed. David smiled. I can't replace 16 years. I wouldn't even know where to begin. Caleb nodded. I know, but, David continued, if you're willing, I'd like to start with today. Caleb looked at him. What does that mean? David stood, picked up the basketball resting beside the porch, spun it once on his fingertips, then tossed it gently toward Caleb. "Think you can beat an old man?" Caleb laughed for the first time that day. "Oh, this won't even be close," David grinned. "We'll see." The two of them walked toward the old hoop beside the driveway. Rachel watched in silence. Louise sat beside her. Neither woman spoke, neither needed to. Some miracles didn't announce themselves with thunder. Sometimes they sounded like two basketballs bouncing on cracked concrete. 3 months later, Caleb arrived in Cedar Falls for Thanksgiving. Emma and Noah had spent days asking questions. "Does this mean we really have a big brother?" Rachel smiled. "Yes." Emma looked toward the front window every few minutes. "I hope he likes pumpkin pie." Noah looked confused. "What if he doesn't? Then we'll make cookies," Emma answered confidently. When Caleb finally walked through the front door, everything felt awkward again. For about 5 seconds, Emma walked straight up to him, hands behind her back. "So?" Caleb smiled nervously. "So?" She grinned. "I've never had a big brother before." He laughed. "I've never had a little sister?" She reached out her tiny hand. "I'm Emma." He shook it. "I'm Caleb." Noah looked up from behind Rachel. "Do you play dinosaurs?" Caleb looked at him seriously, professionally. Noah's eyes grew wide. "Really?" David laughed. "I think you're about to lose your title as Noah's favorite person." The following Sunday, for the first time, the third row was full. David, Rachel, Emma, Noah, and Caleb. As the congregation stood to sing Amazing Grace, Rachel glanced down the row. She remembered another Sunday, years ago, when she believed one secret could protect the people she loved. Now she understood. Truth had cost her almost everything. But truth had also given her something fear never could. Freedom. When the final hymn ended, Pastor Whitfield stepped to the pulpit. He opened his Bible and smiled. There are moments when grace doesn't erase the past. It redeems it. Rachel felt David gently take her hand. She looked at him. He smiled. Not because every wound had healed. Some would take years. Trust would continue to be rebuilt. Questions would still come, but they would face them together. No more hiding, no more pretending, only truth and the grace that had carried them farther than fear ever could. As the congregation began to leave, David placed a hand on Caleb's shoulder. He smiled. "Come on, son. Just one word." "Son?" Caleb looked at him for a second, then smiled back. "Yeah, I'm coming." Epilogue. Sometimes the greatest miracles don't happen when God changes our past. Sometimes they happen when He gives us the courage to stop hiding from it. Rachel thought one secret would destroy the people she loved. Instead, it was the truth, wrapped in repentance, covered by grace, and received with forgiveness. That finally made their family whole. Sometimes, the hardest prison isn't made of walls, it's made of fear. Fear of being rejected. Fear of telling the truth. Fear that if people knew who we really are, they could never love us again. But Scripture reminds us that the truth will set you free. John 8:32. Not because the truth is easy, but because God can only heal what we're willing to bring into His light. Maybe today, you see a little of Rachel in yourself. Maybe you've been carrying a secret for years, or maybe you see yourself in David trying to decide whether forgiveness is even possible. After trust has been broken, wherever you are, remember this. Grace never calls us to pretend sin didn't happen. Grace calls us to face the truth, repent with an honest heart, and trust that God can rebuild what fear almost destroyed. As 2 Corinthians 5:17 reminds us, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. No matter how broken your past may seem, your story doesn't have to end there, because with God, redemption is always greater than regret. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to let us know in the comments. Have you ever seen God restore something you thought was beyond repair? Or, if you were in David's place, do you think you could have chosen forgiveness? We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if stories like this strengthen your faith and remind you of God's incredible grace, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to After the Goodbye, and turn on notifications so you won't miss our next story. Until next time, may God bless you, and may His truth always lead you to His grace.